and welcome to our channel. Sana Abdelhamid here from Pathos Public Speaking, and this is our VIP corner. So basically, the corner of VIPs is a section in Pathos Public Speaking in which we bring successful people and public figures to share with us their experiences and gain new insights about their stories. Today, we will be talking about women empowerment. And for such a specific topic, we've brought a very special person. She's an American citizen who has been living here in Algeria for quite some time for professional reasons. And her professionalism did not stop her from getting closer to the Algerian society. She's mostly known throughout her Facebook page, through which she does not only tries to get to know more about the Algerian people, culture and traditions, but also tries to break the stereotypes. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome with me the wife of the American ambassador in Algeria, Mrs. Karen Rose. Hi, Mrs. Karen.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Thank you so much. Thank you for accepting our invitation. It's such an honor for us to have you in Pathos today.
It's my pleasure to be here.
Thank you so much. So, Mrs. Karen, a lot of people see you throughout your Facebook page because you're mostly famous through that. And I personally follow that page a lot, and I see that you've had a lot of activities here in Algeria. You visited a lot of other provinces. So can you please tell us more about your experience in Algeria?
My experience here has been absolutely fantastic. I honestly didn't know too much about Algeria before I came here. I had been to Tunisia before, and I had been to Morocco, so I had a sense about the Maghreb, but not really Algeria specifically. And it is just a wonderful gem of a country that really has everything. Wonderful people, wonderful landscape, an amazing and diverse history, and I've had a really great opportunity to explore that, and it's been great.
That's awesome. Speaking about people and throughout your interaction with Algerian people, did you found something unique about them?
Yeah, Algerian people first are really welcoming, and they're really genuinely interested in people and other people's curiosity about Algeria and their country. So Algerians are always willing to show you the local sites, to invite you into the home, to invite you to their weddings, so you can get to enjoy the culture. And I've also found that Algerians have a really great sense of humor, and a very unique sense of humor. So Algerians are great people, and I'm so happy to be here.
Thank you so much. I do agree with you in terms of in welcoming people and so on, because we completely understand what does it mean to be in another country and you feel like far from home and you're not surrounded by your beloved one and so on. So we just try to provide that sense of family and home so that our guests would not feel really alone in our country.
Absolutely, and I was just at a wedding recently, and I spent some time talking to two young people, one of which spoke English and her cousin. So now I feel like I have two new family members in my family, and I feel like I'm also part of another. So Algerians are great and really welcoming in that way.
Thank you so much. You're going to be always welcomed in Algeria.
Thank you.
So, Mrs. Karen, again, throughout your Facebook page, you're mostly known to people as the wife of the American ambassador. And today we would like to spot the light on Mrs. Karen independently, to get to know her more. So can you please tell us who is Mrs. Karen Rose?
Sure. So I guess I'll start professionally, since we're talking about empowerment and a lot of professional things. So right now I'm an international consultant in internet technology and development. I've been in the internet technology, policy, and development sphere for over 20 years, so when the internet was really small and just got started. So right now I do a lot of work in helping countries and other organizations like the World Bank develop infrastructure globally, internet infrastructure, and so helping with the policies about how to do that effectively. Before that, I worked at an organization called the Internet Society for 10 years, and I had several roles there. For about 7 or 8 years, I ran our work with developing economies, developing and emerging economies. Again, working on training local engineers to develop internet infrastructure and to learn the most advanced technology about how to manage networks and how to spread the internet. And working a lot with young people and helping them develop as internet engineers as well. And then for a few years at the Internet Society, I also ran our work on strategic projects and strategic thinking about the future of the internet and what the implications might be. Before the Internet Society, I worked at an internet startup company in Sydney, Australia, and we developed content management systems, and that was a lot of fun. We had the opportunity to really get my hands dirty, as we say, in the realities of running an internet startup, doing things with a small staff and really trying to grow a company. And we had some success. We sold one of our products to News Corporation, which is a big global, Australian and global company. So that was very great. And before that, I started my career actually in government. I worked for the Federal Communications Commission, which is the telecommunications regulator in the United States, and also an agency called the National Telecommunications and Information Administration. And in those two roles, I was with the government for about 6 years. My focus was on internet policy and infrastructure policy, and I did a lot of work on globalizing the internet domain name system and the way that networks connect together, internet interconnection. So that's a brief summary of my professional career.
This is really interesting. I'd like also to go more throughout your life and how did you grow up, where did you come from, and so on, if you please.
Sure. Well, I grew up outside of Chicago, Illinois, which is the third largest city in the United States. And I came from a very modest family. We weren't poor, but you know, we really didn't have a lot of money. My father was a factory worker. He worked in a tractor factory. And my mother had a small job in an office at an appliance repair store. But when I was 6 years old, my father got sick with cancer. And unfortunately, he died when I was 9. And my mother never got remarried, but she was really determined to raise me. I was 9 at the time when my father died, and my brother, who was 14, really intent to sort of raise us in a way where you couldn't tell that our family suffered devastation. And it was a real challenge, and a real challenge for my mother. She did not have a university degree. So she ended up working 3 jobs to keep our family together. And also, not too long after my father died, my grandfather also got very sick and had a stroke. So my mother had to take care of me and my brother, and she also had to take care of my grandmother as well. So she did, as I mentioned, 3 jobs. She worked in an appliance repair store. She also then went to school at night and studied to be a travel agent. So she was a travel agent on the weekends. And then for a little extra money, she helped a friend who owned a sandwich shop. So she would go in early in the morning and turn on all of the things that cook the food, and before the staff came in, and for a little extra money, she would open a sandwich shop. Growing up, there were a lot of challenges and a lot of things to overcome.
I see. This is really interesting. And the thing that I really find catchy in your story is that your mom and the way she had that will to support her family and to work extremely hard, and also to rely on herself to support her family alone. And I found this really interesting because the way I see it right now is that while growing up and because of false parenting strategies, a lot of people tend to rely on others while growing up. For example, they would rely on their parents, on their friends, on their significant other, and so on. And it is very important to raise independent girls these days. So from your point of view, can you tell us please to what extent it is important to raise independent girls, and how can we do this in today's world?
I think that's a really great observation that you make. I think one of the most important things that we need to do for girls is instill in them a sense of responsibility for their own lives. So if you look at my mother's example, she never went to university. She just graduated high school, and I think she thought she was going to be able to get married, and her husband would take care of life and everything would be great. But then you look, and any family can have an illness in the family. There can be death in the family. So things in our future don't always transpire the way that we think. And I think it's very important from a young age to instill in girls that they are responsible ultimately for their lives. The other aspect, I think, is this issue of choice. We need to be able to ensure that girls have a sense that they have choices that they can make in their lives. And those choices, some of them have consequences, but ultimately it is their ability to choose. So for example, I feel that, if a woman decides that, she wants to go to school, she goes to university, which I think women should try and do, but then ultimately she wants to have a family life and not pursue a career, I think that's okay. It's her choice of what she wants to do. But I also think it's very important that within that choice, they also have other options. So for example, pursuing a university degree, pursuing advanced education, and then making a choice means that if something happens, in the marriage, if your first choice doesn't work out, you have something to fall back on. You have your university degree to pursue. And if a woman, decides that she wants to put her professional career first, I think that's great, knowing that, she's making that choice to do that. So it's really important, I think, to equip, again, women and girls with a sense of responsibility for their lives, and to be able to give them the tools, the knowledge, and the resources for them to make smart choices about their lives for them.
This is super interesting because I genuinely agree with the fact that girls have to make their own choices and take full responsibility of that. Whether they want to stay home or they want to pursue a career or anything, but they just need to take responsibility of their own decisions, as long as it's their decisions, not anybody else. And I do believe that for us to build that sense of responsibility and independence, we just need to know who we are first and what we are capable of, to know what are our strengths points and weaknesses, how to use these strengths and how to develop these weaknesses, and to be able to take a journey inside ourselves and knowing who we truly are. So talking about knowing oneself, how did knowing oneself contributed in the creation of the woman you are today?
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And this issue of choice is if you don't have the ability to choose between two things, you really don't have a choice. It's a default. So for example, if you don't have an education and you just decide that, okay, I'm just going to get married and have kids, that's really not a choice that you've made between being a professional and just having a family life. You really need to have those options, and you really need to develop the skills that will give you those options as well. And about knowing yourself is really important. Because another thing too, when you become a professional, if you want to do something big, you're going to need other people. And you're going to need to be able to know your own skills in order to know what are the kinds of people you need to put around you in order to advance what you want to do. And I sometimes liken thinking about your own skills and the need to have diverse skills to the game of golf. You're familiar with the game of golf. You have 18 holes, and you have to get a ball around different challenges, and there's different skills that are needed. You need to be able to hit the ball really hard off the tee. You need to be able to play through the entire stretch of the green. You need to be able to have a really skilled shot to get the ball finally in the hole. And in order to do that in golf, golfers have a bunch of different golf clubs, if you think of a golf bag. Some of the clubs are really good for hitting the ball off the tee. Some of the clubs are really good for doing the middle of the course. Some of them are really good for getting the ball in the hole. But you can't be successful on a golf course if you only know how to use two clubs in the bag, right? So that's kind of like skills. You have to be able to know how to use all the different clubs in the bag. You need to be able to develop a whole bunch of different skills to get you through the course successfully. Now, most golfers, like most people, have certain strengths that they're really good with. And like golfers, some golfers are really good with a driver. They can hit that ball off the tee. Some are really good in what they call the short game, getting the ball finally into the hole. And if you know those things and what your strengths are, for example, are you really good with the driver? Are you really good with a chip shot? You'll then know what kind of things you need in the middle in order to fill out your game. And that's kind of like life. So some people are really great, they're really outgoing, they're really extroverts, and they're really great at public speaking. Some people are really great at doing more minute project management work. Those are things you should always be able to rely on, is to leverage your strengths, but also be able to fill in with skills that you don't have. And then also to know when, you really need to bring somebody else in because there's a particular skill that, you're not really great at, to sort of develop then your whole game. So it's really important to know yourself. It's really important to try as much as you can to play with a full golf bag of skills, but know when you need to bring people in order to achieve something big.
This is an extremely important point because what makes us successful or what makes us pursue what we want is not only ourselves but also the people surrounding us. And I do believe that family plays a huge role in that. Mm-hmm. I personally wouldn't be doing a lot of things that I'm doing today if my whole family is not helping me and encouraging me to do more and more. But I do think also that there are a lot of people who maybe put some obstacles for their daughters and so on. I would like to give a message to this kind of people so that we emphasize on the importance of family support for girls. Yeah. And how can we do this in nowadays life?
Yeah, I think again the most important thing is to teach girls how to make good choices. And not give girls the answers or overly shelter girls, because I think that that reduces their empowerment, that reduces their sense of responsibility, that reduces their ability to make good choices. If girls are always sheltered, when they come into a situation, when they face a challenge in life, how are they supposed to overcome it if they've always been given the answers? So I think helping girls think about what it means to make a good choice is really important, and to analyze choice, to analyze risk. What is really a risky situation versus, one that's really kind of more manageable. So to equip girls with the ability to make good choices, I think is really one of the most important things. And on family support too, I think family support is great if you have it. I know when I was young, my father was a big support to me. When I was young, I was a BMX racer. I was the U.S. national champion for girls, 7 and under, when I was a kid. And BMX racing is generally a boys' sport, right? So it would have been very easy, for my father, to say, oh, this isn't for girls, this isn't right. My mother, was a little more cautious, I have to say. She was the one actually saying, maybe you might get hurt. This is kind of a tough sport. But my father was a big supporter, and he was the one that really taught me, I think, the most about achieving and hard work. And he used to say, you don't get what you wish for, you get what you work for. So you can sit at home, and when I was a kid and playing sports, I could, wish to get that first place, but if I didn't work for it, I wasn't going to get it. So my father was really, the short years that I had with my father were really formative because he taught me how to be tough, how to take a fall and get back up. That hard work is going to get you what you want, and to not let anybody stand in your way, especially if it's a boy. So that was really important. But then, some people don't have the luxury, right, of great family support. Like for myself, my father died when I was 9. And my mother, of course, was very concerned about our family, and she wanted to be a little bit more sheltering of especially me and my brother to a bit of a lesser extent, and so she was not as she wasn't really as interested in me pushing boundaries of things as my father was excited about. So, sometimes we don't have the luxury, and some people are in situations where their families are just not supportive at all. And in that sense, you really have to learn how to rely on yourself, and you have to really learn how to overcome obstacles for things that you really want.
This is really interesting. I do believe that your dad had a huge impact on you, that like in long term, to the point where maybe you went into the tech world, where it is basically, I mean, like in the past years, it was more of a male dominant sphere. But can we say that even in 2019, that technology world or maybe business world is more male dominant?
Yeah, technology traditionally has been the domain of men. My father was very interested in technology. I think that's where I got my love of it. We got a computer when I was very young. He was very interested in ham radio and amateur radio. He was very interested in science of all kinds, so I kind of grew up around that. So for me, that was something my father encouraged. So, I always felt like I had a seat at the table when I was in technology. And I was used to being around boys from doing BMX racing. So the fact that, boys and men, could traditionally be a little bit more aggressive didn't really bother me because, I've been there, I've done that, and I've beat them. So, it's not a problem. But yes, it is traditionally male oriented. I think one of the most promising things that we're seeing now is a greater focus on women who have achieved in technology and a greater public recognition of that. So I think one of the most important things for girls in technology, if they're lucky to have a supportive family in that, that's great. But sometimes, family would prefer that you do something else. But I think it's really important for girls to see that there are women out there achieving in these fields. So for example, there's been a lot of focus on Katie Bowman, the woman who helped develop the algorithm that got us the pictures of the black hole. Movies like Hidden Figures, which showed the African American women that did the calculations that got the first person on the moon. Who knew? Not only were they women, African American women from a minority in the United States did such fundamental work for the race to space. There's other women now from history. We're starting to see all these pictures. There was a woman who did the programming for a lot of space, like rockets, and we're starting to see pictures of these women now. And I think to myself, why haven't we seen them before? I didn't see these images of women succeeding in technology when I was young. So I think it's really great that for women in technology, there is much greater focus being put on telling the stories of women who've achieved, so younger girls can see, what, they have a place at the table too.
I completely agree with you, and I do believe that having a role model is extremely important in terms of success, having a successful life and planning for that successful life and so on. And I do believe each one of us has a personal definition of the word success. So despite that personal definition, is there any key success that you can share with us today?
I think it's really important in order to be successful, you have to have resilience, which means the ability to continue to push on and succeed in the face of adversity or in the face of challenge. You have to be able to, when you get knocked down or when you have a failure, to be able to get back up again, take what you've learned from the failure and to move on. So, if a little blow of the wind is going to stop you from doing what you need to do, you're not ultimately going to be successful, because life is challenging. And if you want to do something big enough, you're going to have to challenge, the current thinking around why change isn't being made. So you need to be resilient in the face of people who say no. You also really need to have passion. And that's really important. I think more important than having knowledge about a particular subject is being passionate about what you're doing. Because if you're passionate enough, you're going to be willing to assemble the knowledge and the people that you need to move forward. So a real key is to find something that you really love, you're really interested in, and you can develop a passion in to move forward. And that's one of the most important things I think about being successful.
This is really awesome. Was there any kind of like little habit that you kept doing for the past few years that is making you closer to your goals and dreams?
Yeah, one of the things that I've really tried to do is to try and overcome fear in some way. It doesn't have to be professional fear, fear about something like public speaking, but that's a great example. But to try and keep doing things that you're afraid of or you think you don't like, so you can prove to yourself that you can do them. I will give you a couple examples. When I lived in Australia, I saw people scuba diving. And I thought that looked like the most interesting thing, and to be able to go under the water and see. But the only time, now I'm from Chicago, Illinois, which is smack in the middle of the country. There is no ocean anywhere near Chicago, Illinois. And the first time I was in an ocean, which when I was 12, I almost drowned, okay? So I was a little bit afraid of the ocean. But I really wanted to scuba dive. So I said to myself, I'm going to go learn how to do that. And I looked around at the people who were scuba diving and I said, it doesn't look like you have to be a rocket scientist in order to scuba dive. There's a lot of people doing it. So you know what? I'm going to be able to do it too. And not a lot of those people are dying scuba diving. So, maybe I shouldn't be so afraid. So I did. I kept diving, and the first few times that I scuba dived, I was not successful at all. I panicked. I had to come up to the top of the water. I was afraid when the boat would go out into the ocean, but I kept doing it and doing it and doing it and doing it. And now I'm an advanced scuba diver. So little things like that. Other things too about, trying things that you've never tried before. I've recently started weightlifting and doing like Olympic style weightlifting. And it was not something I was necessarily afraid of, but something that, I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to do it. So now, little by little, I go to the gym a lot, and I practice, and I practice, and I practice, and now I've discovered this real love of doing something where I can see my achievements every time I'm there. So I think, doing something that you're either afraid of, me with scuba diving, maybe for some people it's public speaking, or something that you think, you're really not sure if you're going to like or you do. So you need to push yourself all the time to overcome your fears and to try new things.
I agree. I think that we just need to not let our minds limit us, and we just need to try to do things and then judge ourselves whether we're going to be able to do them or not. And then, as you mentioned, we just need to know how to overcome our fear and so on. Mm-hmm. So Mrs. Karen, this is the end of our interview. I was extremely pleased for having this conversation with you. It was extremely fruitful for me, and I certainly learned a lot from it. Do you have any final words, any advice that you'd like to give to Pathos audience today?
Yeah, so I would say to people, just keep achieving. Follow your passions, obviously. That's going to take you the farthest. Know yourself. Be able to know what your strengths are, where you need to be able to assemble other skills and other people to get done what you want to get done. Develop a taste for achievement, doing something maybe a little bit every day. For me now, it's weightlifting. Every time I can put, another 5 kilos on that bar, it's a little achievement every day. So find something where you can really get a taste for what it means to achieve and to win, and practice that and do that often. And finally, Yeah, make sure that you make the choices that are right for you in your life, but also do things that allow you to have the greatest choice for your future.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Karen. Well, that's it, guys. This is the end of our episode. I genuinely hope that you guys liked it and learned something out from this fruitful conversation. With that being said, I'd like to say that being empowered is our choice. And for that to be possible, the decision has to come from within. May you have the courage to take that decision and to pave your way throughout the love that you deserve. Until we meet again, keep the motivation high.